A passport is a travel document, usually issued by a country's government, that certifies the identity and nationality of its holder for the purpose of international travel. Standard passports contain the holder's name, place and date of birth, photograph, signature, and other identifying information. Passports are moving towards including biometric information in a microchip embedded in the document, making them machine-readable and difficult to counterfeit. A passport specifies nationality, but not necessarily citizenship or the place of residence of the passport holder. A passport holder is normally entitled to enter the country that issued the passport, though some people entitled to a passport may not be full citizens with right of abode. A passport is a document certifying identity and nationality. Having the document does not of itself grant any rights, such as protection by the consulate of the issuing country, although it may indicate that the holder has such rights. Some passports attest to status as a diplomat or other official, entitled to rights and privileges such as immunity from arrest or prosecution, arising from international treaties. Many countries normally allow entry to holders of passports of other countries, sometimes requiring a visa also to be held, but this is not an automatic right. Many other additional conditions, such as not being likely to become a public charge for financial or other reasons, and the holder not having been convicted of a crime, may be applicable. Where a country does not recognize another, or is in dispute with it, it may prohibit the use of their passport for travel to that other country, or may prohibit entry to holders of that other country's passports, and sometimes to others who have, for example, visited the other country. Some countries and international organizations issue travel documents which are not standard passports, but enable the holder to travel internationally to countries that recognize the documents. For example, stateless persons are not normally issued a national passport, but may be able to obtain a refugee travel document or the earlier Nansen passport, which enables them to travel to countries which recognize them, and sometimes to return to the issuing country. A country may issue a passport to any person, including non-nationals. A passport is often accepted, in its country of issue and elsewhere, as reliable proof of identity, unrelated to travel history. One of the earliest known references to paperwork that served in a role similar to that of a passport is found in the Hebrew Bible. Nehemiah chapter 2 verses 7-9, dating from approximately 450 BC, states that Nehemiah, an official serving King Artaxerxes I of Persia, asked permission to travel to Judea. The king granted leave and gave him a letter to the governors beyond the river, requesting safe passage for him as he traveled through their lands. In the medieval Islamic Caliphate, a form of passport was the bearer, a receipt for taxes paid. Only people who paid their zakah or jizya taxes were permitted to travel to different regions of the Caliphate. Thus, the bearer receipt was a traveler's basic passport. Etymological sources show that the term passport is from a medieval document that was required in order to pass through the gate of a city wall or to pass through a territory. In medieval Europe, such documents were issued to travelers by local authorities, and generally contained a list of towns and cities the document holder was permitted to enter or pass through. On the whole, documents were not required for travel to seaports, which were considered open trading points, but documents were required to travel inland from seaports. King Henry V of England is credited with having invented what some consider the first true passport, as a means of helping his subjects prove who they were in foreign lands. The earliest reference to these documents is found in a 1414 Act of Parliament. In 1540, granting travel documents in England became a role of the Privy Council of England, and it was around this time that the term passport was used. In 1794, issuing British passports became the job of the Office of the Secretary of State. The 1548 Imperial Diet of Augsburg required the public to hold imperial documents for travel, at the risk of permanent exile. A rapid expansion of rail travel and wealth in Europe beginning in the mid-19th century led to a unique dilution of the passport system for approximately 30 years prior to World War I. The speed of trains, as well as the number of passengers that crossed multiple borders, made enforcement of passport laws difficult. The general reaction was the relaxation of passport requirements. In the later part of the 19th century and up to World War I, passports were not required, on the whole, for travel within Europe, and crossing a border was a relatively straightforward procedure. Consequently, comparatively few people held passports. During World War I, European governments introduced border passport requirements for security reasons, and to control the emigration of people with useful skills. These controls remained in place after the war, becoming a standard, though controversial, procedure. British tourists of the 1920s complained, especially about attached photographs and physical descriptions, which they considered led to a nasty dehumanization. In 1920, the League of Nations held a conference on passports, the Paris Conference on Passports and Customs Formalities and Through Tickets. Passport guidelines and a general booklet design resulted from the conference, which was followed up by conferences in 1926 and 1927, while the United Nations held a travel conference in 1963. No passport guidelines resulted from it. Passport standardization came about in 1980, under the auspices of the International Civil Aviation Organization. ICAO standards include those for machine-readable passports. Such passports have an area where some of the information otherwise written in textual form is written as strings of alphanumeric characters, printed in a manner suitable for optical character recognition. This enables border controllers and other law enforcement agents to process these passports more quickly, without having to input the information manually into a computer. ICAO publishes Doc 9303 machine-readable travel documents, the technical standard for machine-readable passports. A more recent standard is for biometric passports. These contain biometrics to authenticate the identity of travelers. The passport's critical information is stored on a tiny RFID computer chip, much like information stored on smart cards. Like some smart cards, the passport booklet design calls for an embedded contactless chip that is able to hold digital signature data to ensure the integrity of the passport and the biometric data. Issuance. Historically, legal authority to issue passports is founded on the exercise of each nation's executive discretion. Certain legal tenets follow, namely: first, passports are issued in the name of the state. Second, no person has a legal right to be issued a passport. Third, each nation's government, in exercising its executive discretion, has complete and unfettered discretion to refuse to issue or to revoke a passport. And fourth, that the latter discretion is not subject to judicial review. However, legal scholars like A.J. Arkalian have argued that evolutions in both the constitutional law of democratic nations and the international law applicable to all nations now render those historical tenets both obsolete and unlawful. Under some circumstances, some countries allow people to hold more than one passport document. The UK is one example. This applies usually to people who travel a lot on business, and may need to have, say, a passport to travel on while another is awaiting a visa for another country. Reasons and supporting documentation must be provided to apply for a second UK document. National conditions on issuance. Many countries issue only one passport to each national. When passport holders apply for a new passport, they may be required to surrender the old passport for invalidation. In some circumstances, an expired passport is not required to be surrendered or invalidated. Under the law of most countries, passports are government property, and may be limited or revoked at any time, usually on specified grounds, and possibly subject to judicial review. In many countries, surrender of the passport is a condition of granting bail in lieu of imprisonment for a pending criminal trial. Each country sets its own conditions for the issue of passports. For example, Pakistan requires applicants to be interviewed before a Pakistani passport will be granted. Some countries limit the issuance of passports, where incoming and outgoing international travels are highly regulated, such as North Korea, where general-use passports are the privilege of a very small number of people trusted by the government. Other countries put requirements on some citizens in order to be granted passports, such as Finland, where male citizens aged 18 to 30 years must prove that they have completed, or are exempt from, their obligatory military service to be granted an unrestricted passport. Otherwise, a passport is issued valid only until the end of their 28th year, to ensure that they return to carry out military service. Other countries with obligatory military service, such as Syria, have similar requirements. National status passports contain a statement of the nationality of the holder. In most countries, only one class of nationality exists, and only one type of ordinary passport is issued. However, several types of exceptions exist. Multiple classes of nationality in a single country. The United Kingdom has a number of classes of United Kingdom nationality due to its colonial history. As a result, the UK issues various passports which are similar in appearance but representative of different nationality statuses, which, in turn, has caused foreign governments to subject holders of different UK passports to different entry requirements. Multiple types of passports. One nationality. The People's Republic of China authorizes its special administrative regions of Hong Kong and Macau to issue passports to their permanent residents with Chinese nationality under the one country, two systems arrangement. Visa policies imposed by foreign authorities on Hong Kong and Macau permanent residents holding such passports are different from those holding ordinary passports of the People's Republic of China. A Hong Kong Special Administrative Region passport permits visa-free access to many more countries than ordinary PRC passports. The three constituent countries of the Danish realm have a common nationality. Denmark proper is a member of the European Union, but Greenland and Faroe Islands are not. Danish citizens residing in Greenland or Faroe Islands can choose between holding a Danish EU passport and a Greenlandic or Faroese non-EU Danish passport. Special nationality class through investment. In rare instances, a nationality is available through investment. Some investors have been described in Tongan passports as a Tongan protected person, a status which does not necessarily carry with it the right of abode in Tonga. Passports without sovereign territory. Several entities without a sovereign territory issue documents described as passports. Most notably Iroquois League, the Aboriginal Provisional Government in Australia and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Such documents are not necessarily accepted for entry into a country. Validity. Passports have a limited validity, usually between 5 and 10 years. Many countries require a remaining passport validity of no less than 6 months on arrival, as well as having at least 1 or 2 blank pages. These countries include Afghanistan, Algeria, Bhutan, Botswana, Brunei, Cambodia, Comoros, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, Fiji, Guyana, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, India, Israel, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Laos, Madagascar, Malaysia, Marshall Islands, Mozambique, Myanmar, Namibia, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Oman, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Rwanda, St. Lucia, Samoa, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Solomon Islands, Sri Lanka, Suriname, Taiwan, Tanzania, Timor-Leste, Tonga, Turkey, Tuvalu, Uganda, Vanuatu, Venezuela, and Vietnam. Countries requiring remaining validity of at least 4 months on arrival include Micronesia and Zambia. Countries requiring remaining validity of at least 3 months on arrival include European Union countries, Georgia, Honduras, Iceland, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Liechtenstein, Moldova, Nauru, New Zealand, Panama, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates. Countries requiring remaining validity of at least 1 month on arrival include Eritrea, Hong Kong, Macau, and South Africa. Other countries require either a passport valid on arrival or passport valid throughout the period of intended stay.